Liam had never expected his mission to take such a turn. He had joined the peacekeeping crew of the United Earth Fleet just a few months ago, and this was supposed to be a routine assignment, to visit the planet of Zaltar, an alien world known for its rich history and powerful royal family. His job was simple: help facilitate trade agreements and ensure that human interests were represented. The planet Zaltar was beautiful, the towering white spires and lush forests stretching as far as the eye could see. The people were a mix of advanced technology and ancient traditions. Liam had admired their way of life since he had arrived. They were peaceful, elegant, and proud of their heritage. But nothing in his training had prepared him for what would happen next. It started during a formal dinner in the royal palace. The air was thick with the smell of exotic spices, and the large hall was illuminated by glowing orbs that floated above them. The alien guests, a variety of species from across the galaxy, were all dressed in their finest attire, and Liam tried his best to blend in. His uniform, simple compared to the regal robes of the Zaltorians, made him feel like an outsider. The Princess Alara was seated across from him. He had heard stories about her, how she was a brilliant leader, admired by her people, and how her beauty was unmatched throughout the galaxy. As the conversation turned toward trade routes and planetary defense, Liam tried his best to focus on the matters at hand. But every time he glanced at the princess, he couldn't help but notice her sharp, intelligent eyes and the quiet strength that radiated from her. Then, without warning, her father, King Kale, raised his goblet. The room fell silent. "To the future of Zaltar," he said, his voice echoing in the grand hall. "To peace, prosperity, and to our future alliance with humanity." Everyone raised their glasses, but Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way the king looked at him was intense, almost as if he were measuring him. "You are a fine representative of your people, Liam," the king said, his eyes locked onto Liam's. "And I believe that your mission here is more important than you realize." Liam nodded, trying to remain polite.
"Thank you, Your Majesty."
"It's an honor to be here," but the king wasn't done. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "There is something I need to speak to you about in private." Liam's heart raced as the king's words hung in the air.
Ow.
What could he possibly want to discuss in private? Was it about the treaty or something else? He had heard that the Zaltorians could be unpredictable, but this felt different. The dinner continued, but Liam felt a growing sense of unease. Finally, after the meal had ended, the king motioned for him to follow. They walked down a long hallway, the walls adorned with intricate paintings of ancient battles and royal victories. It felt like something out of a history book, except this wasn't fiction. This was real. The king led him into a private study, a room lit only by the soft glow of ancient crystals. There, seated on a plush chair, was Princess Alara. She looked serene, but Liam couldn't help but notice the tension in her posture. "Liam," the king began, his voice serious now, "I've invited you here for a reason. You may be aware of our prophecy." Liam nodded. He had heard rumors about the Zaltorian prophecy, something ancient and mysterious that had been passed down for generations. But he had never given it much thought. Prophecies were often just old stories, weren't they? The king continued. "It is said that a human will one day marry our princess and unlock the power that has been hidden in her bloodline for centuries. This is not just a matter of tradition. It is a matter of survival for our people." Liam's eyes widened in shock. "What? Marry the princess?" "Yes," King Kale replied, his gaze intense. "You see, our empire is facing a threat unlike any we've seen before. There are enemies gathering in the dark corners of the galaxy, enemies who would destroy everything we have built. The prophecy tells us that the union of a human and our princess will awaken an ancient power that will protect us from this threat." Liam shook his head, trying to process what he had just heard. "But I don't even know her. This sounds ... insane." Princess Alara spoke for the first time, her voice soft but firm. I didn't ask for this either, Liam. But this is why it must be. It is the will of my family and the will of the prophecy. Liam looked between the king and the princess, feeling trapped. You're asking me to marry her? Just like that? The king nodded. Yes, we are. You are the one chosen by the prophecy. And you will have our full support, of course. You will be given all that you could ever want. Wealth, power, influence. Liam could barely wrap his head around the words. Marry the princess? It sounded like a bad joke. He was a regular guy from Earth, just a soldier trying to make his way in the galaxy. He wasn't royalty. He didn't even believe in prophecies. But the pressure was clear. The king's eyes were unwavering, and Alara, despite her composed appearance, seemed resigned to her fate. I'm not asking for your love, Liam, Alara said quietly. I'm asking for your help. You may not believe in the prophecy, but I do, and I need you to help me save my people. Liam stood there, frozen. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. Was he really going to marry someone he didn't? No, just to save a planet and its people. The king's voice broke through his thoughts. I know this is a lot to ask, but you must understand the stakes. Our enemies grow stronger every day. Time is running out. Liam looked at the princess, her calm demeanor hiding the fear in her eyes. He didn't know what to say, or if he even had a choice. I need some time to think about this, Liam said, his voice strained. He turned and walked toward the door, but before he left, he glanced back at the princess. She was staring at him, her expression unreadable. The decision was too big for him to make in that moment. But one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. Liam couldn't sleep that night. The events at the dinner kept replaying in his mind, like a strange dream that wouldn't fade away. The princess's family, the prophecy, and the idea of marrying Hurt all felt too surreal to be true. He had walked out of the royal palace feeling confused and overwhelmed, unsure of what to do. He hadn't signed up for this. He was just a soldier, a representative of Earth, not some chosen hero to save an alien empire. The more the weight of the king's words pressed on him. The next day, Liam was summoned back to the royal palace. His mind raced as he walked through the grand halls, the walls adorned with portraits of Zaltar's past rulers. Golden table, looking as calm and composed as ever. But there was something different about her today. She seemed quieter, almost sad. Liam couldn't help but notice the subtle sadness in her eyes. Good morning, Liam, she said softly, her voice as gentle as the breeze. I hope you slept well. Liam nodded, but he couldn't bring himself to speak right away. Instead, he stared at the floor, unsure of what to say. This wasn't a conversation he had ever imagined having. Princess Alara stood and motioned for him to sit across from her. Please sit, she said, gesturing to the seat in front of her. We need to talk. Liam took a seat, feeling the weight of the situation settle in his chest. The air between them felt thick with unspoken words. I know this is all very sudden for you, Alara began. Believe me, I never wanted this either. My family has their reasons, and the prophecy has its demands. But I want you to understand something. This isn't just about me. It's about the future of my people, the future of Zaltor. Liam looked up at her, still not fully understanding. But I'm just... a guy. I'm not a prince, or a hero, or anything special. Why me? Why not someone else? Lara's eyes softened as she met his gaze. Because the prophecy is clear. It says that a human will come and marry a Zaltorian princess, unlocking a power that will save us from the darkness. My family believes you are that human. It's not just fate. Liam, it's the future of Zaltar. He leaned back in his chair, trying to process her words. The more she spoke, the more he realized this wasn't just some political maneuver. There was something deeper at play here, something far beyond his control.
I don't know what to
Say, Liam admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't sign up for any of this. Came here to help with peace talks, not to be a part of some prophecy. Alara sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. I never asked for this either. My family has been pushing me toward this marriage for years. They believe that this union is the only way to protect our people. But I can't deny what the prophecy says. She paused, her voice softening. I'm trapped in a world of expectations. And so are you. Liam felt a strange sense of understanding. Alara wasn't just a princess locked in her royal duties. She was a person, just like him, caught in a situation beyond her control. But I'm not asking you to marry me out of duty, Alara continued. I know that might sound strange, but I don't want you to feel forced into this. If you choose to do this, I want it to be because you believe it's the right thing to do. Because Liam, our people need you. The galaxy needs you. The words hit Liam like a wave crashing against a cliff. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about something bigger. His mind raced. But there was still one thing he needed to know. But how do I know this will actually work? How do I know the prophecy is real? Alara gave a small, understanding smile. I can't prove it to you with science or logic. I wish I could, but the people of Zaltar believe in it. And even if you don't, the fact remains that we are on the brink of war. The dark forces are coming for us, Liam, and if we do not act now, our world will fall. Liam's heart sank. He had heard rumors of a growing alien threat in the galaxy, but this was different. Zaltar wasn't just another peaceful planet. It was an empire, one that held incredible power. And if it fell, the ripple effects would be felt throughout the entire galaxy. What happens if I say no? Liam asked, his voice strained with the weight of the question. Alara's eyes darkened slightly. If you refuse, the prophecy will remain unfulfilled. And without the power that union brings, Zaltar will be left defenseless. The enemies will attack, and we won't survive. Liam took a deep breath, his mind racing. He wasn't sure he could. Marry someone he barely knew, someone who was a stranger to him. But the stakes were higher than anything he could have imagined. He wasn't just being asked to save one planet, he was being asked to save an entire galaxy. Give me some time, he said finally, his voice steady. I need to think this through. I need to know that I'm doing the right thing. Alara nodded, her expression softening.
Of course, Liam. Take all the time you need.
But remember, the galaxy's fate might rest in your hands. As Liam stood to leave, the weight of the decision hung heavy on his shoulders. He had never thought he would be in this position. He was just a soldier, a simple man who had been thrown into a galaxy-spanning conflict. But now, he had to decide if he could rise to the challenge, not just for himself, but for everyone who depended on him. As he walked out of the room, he knew his life would never be the same again. The days that followed were the longest of Liam's life. Every moment was filled with the weight of the decision he had to make. He couldn't stop thinking about Alara, her calm demeanor, and the way her eyes had softened when she spoke of Zaltar's future. The words she had said about the prophecy kept echoing in his mind. Liam knew he had to make a choice, but how could he? He wasn't the hero of some ancient tale. He was just a regular human soldier, sent to Zaltar for a mission that had nothing to do with saving an entire galaxy. And yet here he was, being asked to marry a princess and unlock an ancient power. That would protect her world. The pressure was overwhelming, but there was something else that weighed heavily on him, the way Alara looked at him. She wasn't just a princess caught in her royal duties. She was a woman with fears and doubts, just like him. She didn't want this marriage either, but her people believed it was the only way to save them. Liam's thoughts were interrupted. When he was called to another meeting with Alara, he had been walking through the royal gardens, trying to clear his mind when he was approached by one of the palace attendants. The princess requests your presence, the attendant said with a polite bow. Liam didn't know what to expect. But he followed the attendant to the grand hall. Alara was waiting for him in a small room off to the side, her face a little more serious than usual. She was sitting at a table, reading through some ancient texts. When she looked up and saw him enter, her expression softened. But there was a trace of worry in her eyes. Liam, thank you for coming, she said, standing to greet him. I know this must be difficult for you, and I'm sorry for the way things have unfolded. Liam took a deep breath and sat across from her. It's not just difficult, Alara. It feels impossible. I don't even know if I believe in the prophecy, but what if it's true? What if it really is the only way to save your people? Alara nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the table. I understand. I've spent my entire life hearing about this prophecy, but it wasn't until recently that I started to truly believe. In it, my father, my family. They believe it with all their hearts. And for a long time, I didn't want to accept it. I thought it was just a story. Now, She paused, her fingers tracing the edge of an old map on the table. Liam could see the weight of the situation on her. She wasn't just the princess of Zaltar. She was someone who was about to make the hardest decision of her life. I didn't ask for any of this, Alara continued, her voice softening. I never wanted to be forced into this marriage, and I certainly didn't want someone else's fate tied to mine. But I'm starting to realize that this prophecy is more than just a story. It's the key to saving everything we know. Liam listened closely, his mind still racing. But how can we be sure? How can we know this is the right choice? Lara's eyes met his. I've been asking myself the same question. I've spent countless hours studying the texts, the history, and the signs. There's something about the way the ancient records speak of the human who would marry me. It's not just about a union of two people. It's about awakening something inside me, something that has been dormant for centuries. Liam leaned forward, trying to make sense of her words. What is it? What's inside you? Alara took a deep breath. It's a power, Liam. A power that was hidden away by my ancestors to protect Zaltar from an ancient enemy. They knew that one day we would face a threat greater than anything we've ever known, and the prophecy was created to ensure that we would have a way to fight back. Liam's heart pounded in his chest as the pieces started to come together. An ancient power? He repeated. And you think this power will help you fight the enemy? Alara nodded. But it's not just about the power itself. It's about the bond that must be formed. The prophecy says that the union of a human and a Zaltorian will unlock the strength to protect us. Without that bond, the power remains dormant. And if we don't unlock it soon, the enemy will destroy us. Liam couldn't believe what he was hearing. It sounded like something straight out of a legend, but Alara was convinced. And as much as he hated to admit it, he could feel the truth in her words. There was a sense of urgency, something in the air that told him they were running out of time. So what's next? Liam asked, his voice steady but unsure. Alara stood up and walked over to a large window overlooking the city. I've spoken to my father and the council. We don't have much time. The enemy is already on the move. They've begun their invasion, and we can't afford to wait much longer. If you choose to marry me, we will trigger the ancient power, and together we can stop them. Liam's mind was spinning. It wasn't just a matter of marrying a princess. It was about saving an entire galaxy. He had been thrown into something far beyond his control, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized he had no choice. The stakes were too high, and if the prophecy was true, he might be the only one who could help. I don't know if I'm the right person for this, Liam said quietly, standing up to join her by the window. I'm not a hero. I don't have any special powers. But if this is what it takes to save your people, then I'll do it. Alara turned to face him, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Liam. I don't know what to say, but you're right. Don't have a choice. The power inside me can only be unlocked by someone who is truly willing, and I need you to be that person. Liam took a deep breath. This wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't about the princess or the prophecy. It was about something bigger, a war that could change the fate of everything. I'll marry you, Alara, Liam said, his voice firm. But we're in this together, and we'll face whatever comes side by side. Liam couldn't stop thinking about the conversation he had with Alara, the weight of her words. The idea of marrying her to unlock an ancient power kept him awake long into the night. He had always thought of himself as just a soldier, a simple man doing his duty. But now the fate of an entire planet rested on his shoulders. The next morning, the palace was buzzing with preparations for the royal wedding. The news had spread quickly. The princess and the human soldier were about to marry, and with it, Zaltar's future would be decided. Liam felt like a fish out of water. He had never imagined his life would take such a turn. But here he was, standing in a grand hall, preparing to marry someone he barely knew. Lara's family had spared no expense for the ceremony. The halls were filled with rich tapestries, the air heavy with the scent of exotic flowers, and the sound of soft music playing in the background. It was beautiful, no doubt, but Liam couldn't shake the feeling that everything was happening too fast. There was so much he didn't know, so much that was still uncertain. When he finally saw Alara, standing in her wedding dress, everything around him seemed a blur. She was breathtaking, her beauty undeniable, but it wasn't just her appearance. That took his breath away. It was the way she stood there, calm and poised, as if this was the moment that would change everything. The moment when the prophecy would finally be fulfilled. Liam swallowed hard. He had spent days thinking about this, about the life he was about to enter. He wasn't a prince. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who had been thrown into a world that he didn't understand. A world where ancient prophecies and powerful rulers seemed to decide his fate. As he approached her, their eyes met, and for a brief moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the room. Alara smiled at him, but there was a hint of sadness in her gaze. Liam could see the same doubts in her eyes that he felt in his own heart. They were both trapped by this prophecy, forced into a future neither of them had chosen. "You don't have to do this, you know," Liam said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "We can still walk away. We can figure this out together." Alara shook her head, her expression serious. "I wish we could, Liam, but we both know this is the only way. If we don't marry, the power will remain dormant. Zaltar will fall, and so will the galaxy. I can't let that happen. Spent my whole life preparing for this moment, even if I didn't understand it until now." Liam reached out and gently took her hand. He knew what she meant, understood the responsibility that lay on their shoulders. The prophecy wasn't just about them. It was about the future of a world that was already on the brink of destruction. He nodded slowly. "I understand, Alara, and I'm with you. I'll do whatever it takes to help you save your people." They stood there for a moment, their hands clasped tightly, both of them knowing that once the ceremony began, there would be no turning back. The ceremony was long, with countless rituals and traditions that Liam didn't fully understand. He stood by Alara's side, trying his best to follow along, but all he could think about was the promise they had made to each other, promise to face the future together, no matter how uncertain it was. When the final words were spoken, and the ancient relics in the hall began to glow, Liam felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was as if the air itself had shifted, as if something deep within the very core of the planet was awakening. He didn't know what was happening, but he could feel the power building. Alara turned to him, her face calm, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. "It's working," she whispered. "The power is awakening. We've done it." Liam felt a surge of energy, a wave of heat that seemed to come from within Alara. The room around them seemed to vibrate, and the lights flickered as the ancient power stirred to life. It was as if something deep inside her had been unlocked, something old and powerful that had been waiting for this moment. He couldn't explain it, but he could feel the change, the connection between them growing stronger. It was as if the universe itself had recognized their union and was responding. The power that Alara had spoken of, the power that could save Zaltar, was real. For the first time since he had arrived on Zaltar, Liam felt a sense of purpose. He wasn't just here to follow orders. He wasn't just a soldier. He was part of something much bigger. He was part of a bond that could save an entire world. But as the ceremony drew to a close, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The power was building, yes, but there was something else, something darker on the horizon. He could feel it in the air, the same sense of unease that had been growing since he first arrived. The enemy was still out there, and even with the power awakening inside Alara, they would still have to face whatever was coming. Liam turned to her, his voice low. "Is this enough? Will it be enough to stop them?" Lara's eyes were filled with determination, but there was a hint of fear there, too. "I don't know," she admitted. "But it's all we have. We have to believe it will be enough." As they stood there, their hands still intertwined, Liam made a silent vow. No matter what came next, he would stand by her. Together, they would face the darkness that threatened their world, and together, they would fight for the future of Zaltar. The day after the ceremony, the palace was in a state of quiet chaos. The air was thick with the energy that had awakened inside Alara during the wedding. The ancient power that had been dormant for centuries was now stirring, and it was clear that things were changing both for Alara and for Zaltar. But even as the power grew stronger within her, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that there was still so much they didn't know. The enemy was still out there, moving closer with every passing day. There was no guarantee that the power Alara had unlocked would be enough to stop them. Liam stood by the window of their quarters, staring out at the city below. Zaltar was a beautiful world, filled with shining towers and green landscapes. But the peace that had once ruled the planet was now under threat. He could feel it, like a dark cloud hanging over them. The enemy was coming, and no matter how much power Alara had unlocked, it might not be enough. Alara walked up beside him, her presence calm yet powerful. "I know what you're thinking," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "The power is awakening, but it might not be enough. I can feel it too." Liam glanced at her, surprised by how well she understood him. Despite everything that had happened between them, despite their whirlwind marriage, they were still strangers in many ways. Now, as they stood together, facing the uncertainty of what lay ahead, he couldn't help but feel a deeper connection. "I don't know if we can stop them, Alara," Liam said, his voice heavy with worry. "We've unlocked the power, but what if it isn't enough? What if we're too late?" Alara placed her hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but firm. "We still have a choice, Liam. The power is strong, but it isn't just about the strength. It's about USA, about what we decide to do with it. We have a choice to fight back, to stand up against the darkness." Liam felt a surge of determination in her words. She was right. They weren't powerless. The power had awakened, yes, but the true strength came from their decision to act, to face the enemy together. He didn't have to wait for some grand miracle. They could choose to fight, to protect everything they loved. "I've spent my life preparing for this," Alara continued, her eyes distant but filled with resolve. "But I was always waiting for someone else to fight, someone else to come and save us. But now I realize that the only person who can save Zaltar is us, together." Liam looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he understood what she meant. This wasn't just about destiny or prophecy. It was about their actions, their choices. They could choose to stand and fight, to face the darkness that threatened their world. The future was not written for them. They would write it themselves. "Then let's fight," Liam said, his voice filled with conviction. "Let's show them that we won't just sit back and wait for them to destroy everything." Alara smiled, her eyes bright with a newfound sense of hope. "Yes, together we can do this." But even as they made their decision, the enemy was already moving. The forces that had been gathering in the shadows were now preparing to strike. Zaltar's defenses were strong, but they had never faced anything like the enemy that was coming. And now, with the power Alara had unlocked, the time to act had come. The council met that afternoon to discuss their plan of attack. The royal chambers were filled with advisors, generals, and military leaders from across the empire. Liam had been invited to sit in on the meeting, his presence now official as part of the royal family. Alara stood at the head of the table, her posture regal and commanding. "We don't have time," one of the generals said, his voice gruff and urgent. "The enemy is already advancing. Their fleet is moving towards Zaltar, and they're not stopping. We need to strike now before they reach the planet." Liam could feel the tension in the room. The pressure was mounting. The fate of an entire world rested on their shoulders. He glanced at Alara, who met his gaze with a steady, unwavering look. This was it. The moment they had been waiting for. "I agree," Alara said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "We have the power now. The prophecy has unlocked something within me, something that can protect Zaltar. But we need to act quickly. We need to strike first." The generals nodded, and the room was filled with a sense of urgency. Plans were drawn up, strategies were discussed, and preparations for the coming battle began. But even with all the power and strength they had, Liam couldn't help but feel a twinge of doubt. Would it be enough? As the meeting concluded, Liam and Alara walked out together, the weight of the upcoming battle pressing down on them. The enemy was coming, and they had to stop them. But even with the power now at their disposal, there were still so many unknowns. "Are you ready?" Alara asked, her voice soft but determined. Liam nodded. I don't know if we're ready, but we have no choice. We have to fight. Lara took his hand, squeezing it gently. We don't have to do this alone, Liam. We have each other. That's all we need. Together, they stood in the midst of uncertainty, ready to face the coming storm. They had chosen to fight, to protect the future of Zaltar, and they would do whatever it took to defend their world.
Oh.
It wasn't just about the power they had unlocked. It was about the choice they had made, the choice to stand strong together. The war had begun. Liam stood at the edge of the battlefield, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. The once peaceful planet of Zaltar was now a war zone, the sounds of battle filling the air. The sky above was dark with smoke, and the ground beneath his boots trembled with the impact of distant explosions. The enemy had arrived, and they were fierce. But Zaltar wasn't going down without a fight. Beside him, Alara stood tall, her face set in determination. She had unlocked the ancient power within her, and it was clear that the power was real. She had become a force unlike anything Liam had ever seen. Her presence alone seemed to change the very air around them. But despite the power, Liam knew that they couldn't do this alone. They needed each other. "Are you ready?" Liam asked, his voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Alara nodded, her eyes focused on the battlefield ahead. "We have no choice now. We fight or we lose everything." Liam felt the truth in her words. There was no turning back now. The enemy was closing in, and they had to hold their ground. Had to fight not just for Zaltar, but for the entire galaxy. The battle was fierce, with explosions and blaster fire lighting up the darkened sky. Liam fought alongside Zaltorian soldiers, his training and instincts kicking in as he moved from one enemy position to another. He had been in many battles before, but this one felt different. It wasn't just about winning or losing, it was about survival. It was about the future of Zaltar, the future of the galaxy. Through the smoke and chaos, Liam could see Alara at the center of the battle, her power radiating from her like a beacon. Her presence was undeniable, a force of nature in the midst of war. As she raised her hand, bolts of energy shot from her fingers, striking down the enemy's forces with deadly precision. Liam watched in awe, knowing that they were witnessing the power of the prophecy in action. But even with the power Alara had unlocked, the enemy was relentless. They fought with a fury that seemed endless, pressing on despite the losses. And Alara moved through the battlefield together, side by side, their bonds stronger than ever. They knew that they had to stay united if they were going to win. Hours passed in a blur. The sounds of battle seemed endless, and Liam's body ached with exhaustion. But there was no time to rest. The enemy was closing in on their last stronghold, and if they couldn't hold the line, all would be lost. "Liam, we have to end this," Lara shouted over the noise of the battle. "The enemy's leader is ahead. We need to stop him." Liam nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what they had to do. They had to take down the leader of the enemy forces to stop the war, but getting to him wouldn't be easy. Enemy's defenses were tight, and every step forward felt like they were walking into the jaws of a trap. Together, they pushed forward, cutting through the enemy's lines with a combination of Alara's power and Liam's skill with a blaster. Every moment brought them closer to the leader, but the enemy was relentless. They fought with everything they had, refusing to let them reach their target. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the heart of the enemy's forces. Standing before them was the enemy leader, a towering figure clad in black armor, his face hidden behind a dark mask. His eyes glowed with a cold, deadly light, and his voice rang out with authority. "You think you can stop me?" He sneered, his voice echoing in the chaos. "You are nothing but a child's dream. Your power is meaningless. The galaxy will fall, and there is nothing you can do to stop it." Lara stepped forward, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We are not the ones who will fall," she said, her voice steady. "You are." The enemy leader raised his hand and dark energy crackled in the air. But before he could strike, Alara raised her own hand, and the energy around her flared. To life, the power that had been awakened inside her surged, a tidal wave of energy that slammed into the enemy leader with a force that shook the ground beneath them. For a moment,
Ow.
everything was still. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath as the energy crackled in the air, and then the enemy leader staggered back, his armor crackling and sparking under the force of Alara's power. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he gasped. Struggling to stay on his feet, Alara's eyes blazed with power. "I don't need to understand everything. I only need to know one thing. We're not going to let you win." With a final surge of energy, Alara unleashed the full power within her, the blast of light and energy engulfing the enemy leader in a blinding explosion. The ground shook, and the air seemed to ripple with the force of it. When the light faded, the enemy leader was gone, his forces scattered. The battlefield fell silent as the last of the enemy retreated, unable to face the combined might of Liam and Alara. Liam stood there, breathless, staring at Alara. Her power had saved them. But it wasn't just the energy that had defeated the enemy, it was her determination. Her belief that they could overcome any challenge together. She had unlocked the power within her, but it was their bond, their choices, that had made all the difference. Alara turned to him, her face exhausted but filled with relief. "We did it," she said quietly. "We won." Liam nodded, a smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We did, together." The war was over. Zaltar had been saved, and the galaxy had been protected. But as Liam and Alara stood together on the battlefield, they both knew that this was just the beginning. They had faced the darkness and come out victorious, but there would always be new challenges ahead. And as long as they had each other, they would face them, side by side.